Hi there again, everybody. Welcome back to Prestige Auctions. And of course, today is going to be Wednesday after the first week of our shutdown. And I'm going to be talking to you about a few different things while we're off, as well as giving you today's all-important quiz question as well. But the biggest question, somebody said to me, what's the biggest question you ever get asked at Prestige Auctions? Well, there are several of them. But of course, the burning question that I get continuously, even all these years on, is about Pleasure Island. When we saw Pleasure Island off, it was an extraordinary day for us, days and the lead up to it. But the question that's always posed to me is, whatever happened to that carousel? Whatever happened to this? Whatever happened to that? And as much as I love talking about it, it still fills me with fear every time I hear the word carousel, because of course that's the day that it all went wrong for us at the auction, in terms of somebody pressing the bid button when they never meant to bid on it. And of course that resulted in a £250,000 mistake for somebody. So basically what they did was press a button to bid for something at £180,000 reserve, and of course add on all the fees, commissions, VAT, the fees that they add on from the online bidding partners and so on. And that was close to £250,000 mistake that somebody made. And people said to me, how did you decide what to do about that? Well, of course, it was a tricky one, because it wasn't just me that was involved and Prestige Auctions. It was three different parties. So of course you had Pleasure Island themselves, you had Prestige Auctions, and you had Bid on This, who was the bidding partner at the time that we used to use. And of course at that point everyone has got an interest in it. So you've got Pleasure Island, who had the interest for the item itself. You had Prestige Auctions, who had an interest in it for commission, and then you had an interest in it from Bid on This that also had an interest on it for commission. I think it was 1 or 1.5% fees that they charged. So everyone had an interest in the item being sold, and of course it was one of those things that you kind of thought, damn, what we're going to do. We had all the press in the building, we had the BBC One show filming in there, we had Look North, which was going live from there, we had Radio Homicide, and goodness knows who else that were talking to us, and we had to stop and do media breaks and things. Well, once the item came up for sale, which was like the key item of the sale, it didn't sell. And if you ever watch the items from the BBC on the BBC One show that we've got somewhere on our YouTube channel, then you'll see that item didn't sell, hammer came down as not sold. However, literally as soon as that happened, a bid came through online. Well, normally you don't reopen a lot. However, we was able to, because there was no bid on it. So the fact that we'd got a bid through was created a lot of jubilation. The hard work had paid off, and so on and so forth. Now, what I never realised is how eagle-eyed some reporters can be, and producers and presenters, because literally as we got the phone call to say, I've made a serious error here, I've made a serious mistake, people noticed this. People watched that we was all we'd stopped the auction for a few minutes to sort of do some media stuff, and people were noticing that something wasn't right. And of course it soon became apparent that this person had bid on, well, had pressed the bid button, they say by mistake. I'm not quite sure how you could have done that. However, that's what they said, and we soon realised that the bid was not going to go through. However, and this is something that people need to be concerned about almost. When you sign up to an online bidding platform, you are signing a contract in the terms and conditions there that you are going to pay for what you bid on. So at that point, the hammer had come down. We was owed the money, and we had to think to ourselves at this point, what are we going to do? Are we going to pursue this person through the courts? We would have won. There's no doubt about it. We would have won through the courts, because he was contractually obliged to follow the deal through when he hit the bid button online. But it was always going to be tricky chasing somebody up for £250,000. And as much as that would have been great for our business at the time, we also had to take into consideration, well, did the person actually make a mistake? we could never be sure of that. Of course, we had all the daily newspapers chasing us around. We had the Jeremy Vine show chasing us. We got an Have I Got News For You. There was all sorts of things that happened that made it quite interesting for us. But the following day, back at Prestige Auctions, because we went straight into viewing. We did the auction on the Wednesday and the Thursday and went into viewing on the Friday for the week's general sale. We still carried on as normal. And we was doing something for the press. And they asked us the question, what are you going to do about the carousel thing? And I don't know to this day where this came from. It just jumped straight into my head, and I went, look, we're a family-run business. We're not about ruining families. And some of the newspapers printed that as a headline and so on and so forth, because it captured the imagination of lots of people around the UK and around the world as well. And they went with that. But of course, that was a decision that had to be made amongst three businesses. We all agreed that we wasn't going to pursue it. And but one of the daily tabloid papers was actually chasing the person that had made the error with basically $5,000 to say, sell us your story. But we just jumped onto that as a business and said, look, tell your bidder, this is to the bid on this because we didn't know his details. Tell your bidder that if he accepts any kind of payment from a national newspaper, then we will pursue him for what was going to be around £44,000 in commission. And we didn't want to have to do that. So clearly the story never got sold, so his side of the story never got told. But I will put this out here, all these years on. If by any chance you know the person, and I know it was in Lincolnshire, and I know roughly whereabouts as well, if you do know that person, or you are that person, and you are watching this video, then I invite you onto a podcast at Prestige Auctions. Come and talk to us. Come and talk to us about that day. There's no hard feelings. Ultimately, you made the mistake, or maybe we could bring the podcast to you if you don't want to travel. Then there you go, something to put out there. We would love to talk to you, to be fair, to find out what your side of it was from that day, how you felt that day when you realised if you did make a mistake, when you realised what you'd done. Make a great podcast, that, to be fair, and maybe to finally draw a line under what was a very interesting day. Anyway, listen, we have got to do a quiz question, which is going to be quiz question number 2. And this quiz question is going to give you the start of the answer. The first letter of the answer is going to be part of the anagram. So today's question is this. When you come to the auction and submit items, you are called something. Now, if you buy items, you are called a buyer. If you submit items into an auction, what are you called? There you go. You submit items into an auction, what are you called? There you go. And the answer to that will give you another letter, and that letter you need to jumble around with what was from yesterday's as well, and ultimately you will end up with 12 letters, and on the last day we will tell you which one of those, what size the first word is and what size the second word is. And then if you enter all those in and message us, you will be entered into the draw for the prize, or prizes, depending on what we decide to do, all told in the end. So there you go. There's some of you a little bit something of interest for you for today, which is Wednesday. What we got for you tomorrow, Thursday, we've got another video for you. Do keep watching them. Do keep putting those letters together, and hopefully you'll be able to come up with an answer and hopefully get into the draw for those prizes. Thanks ever so much for watching this one, everybody, and we'll hopefully see you all very soon at the auction.